What is up, guys? It's Doo Poker here, back for another video. Today we are going to be talking about what hand class you should never be check raising when you are the 3-bet pot out of position pre-flop raiser. Now, this only applies to low boards, but it's very important to understand this concept. So let's take a very common spot. We are in the small blind. Our opponent is on the button and he is a reg. He RFIs 2.5x. Let's say we have 7-6 of spades. We decide to 3-bet, big blind folds and button calls. The flop comes 8-5-2 and we have our 7-6. And we know from theory that this is going to be checked, but our opponent decides to stab on the flop for small. Now, what do you think a solver does versus a small stab? It never check raises. Why? Why does 7-6 never check raise? It's actually a over one big blind mistake to check raise. Well, let's repeat the same exact concept with another hand history. This time, we're in the small blind against the reg, same player, and we check raise 8-7 suited. Big blind folds, button calls, and the flop comes 9-6-2, and we have 8-7. And we always check flop, and now again our opponent on the button stabs for 1/3. What do you notice about 8-7? Never check raising. All right, what's going on here? It's never check raising again. Well, we have to think about the reason. What is the reasoning? This is not as big of a mistake, but it's still a mistake. What is the reason that 8-7 suited, 7-6 suited never check raises? Well, before I get into that, I'm going to show you two more spots where this exact same thing happens, so follow along. Let's say we're in the big blind this time, and the button 2.5x's. We have 6-5 suited. We decide to 3-bet, the button calls, and the flop comes 7-4-2. Open-ended straight draw. We high frequency check our 6-5. Our opponent on the button stabs 1/3. What do you notice again? Never check raising. So what is going on? We're never check raising the open-ended straight draw in this spot. Well, let's go to notes and try to think about this for a bit. We want to understand what the solver is doing. The solver is protecting us in this situation because let's go back to the first spot. Let's go back to the 7-6 spot where we have an open-ended straight draw on an 8-5-2 board. So button opens, we have 7-6, big blind folds, and we call, and the flop comes 8-5-2. Now, let's look at sizing. We know the pot is 25 big blinds, right? So we know that's 25 big blinds. If my opponent bets 8.25 and I check raise, so let's say we have 88 big blinds to start this hand because it's a 100 BB stack. If I commit 22.85 or 8, what do I have left? What do I have left? I have 65.2 big blinds left to win 200 big blinds if my opponent jams. Let's say I check raise my 7-6, okay? So I don't do what a solver does. I check raise my 7-6. Now the button jams. Now what do I do with 7-6? You have to look at the pot odds for the spot. We see you have to call 65.2 to win 200, which means you need 32.6% equity to the pot. What does an open-ended straight draw have? Around 32%. So you're putting yourself in a 0 EV spot. This is not what you want to do. Solvers do not want to put themselves in 0 EV spots because that is not the highest EV line. So in order to prevent this from happening, it always check calls open-ended straight draws on the flop. This is a very important concept to understand. This happens in the small blind formation and also in the big blind formation. It happens in every formation. It's just the ranges, the way they interact. And if my opponent on the button jams, I'm put in a 0 EV spot. To avoid this spot, what small blind does is it always calls. So now if I check raise, I can't get jammed on and be put in a 0 EV spot. All right, guys, I thought this concept was pretty cool. It's pretty counterintuitive because sometimes you think, okay, well, I have equity. I can probably check raise. It's probably not a big deal, but it actually is a big deal to check raise your open-ended straight draw in this spot because of how the pot odds work. Your pot odds are almost exactly the same to your real equity to the pot, which makes it 0 EV, and we want to avoid 0 EV spots. If you enjoy this type of content, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. New video every single day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.